Hello there, and welcome to this. It is Creative Musings Week on the Sarah Faruya Creative Legends podcast. I had a break over the summer, as usual, an unannounced break, because I just realized that sometimes I just like to abandon. There's a saying. I don't know, it's attributed, I think, to Picasso. And of course, I love to kind of drop in a name there now and then. It kind of implies um like an adjacency to Picasso if I throw that in there, like I had some kind of dialogue with him. It's actually a marketing trick as well. Adjacency marketing, perhaps it's called, I can't remember. But it's like by kind of putting yourself next to somebody else or suggesting that you know somebody, or like, I've posted photographs of myself, selfies that I've taken to queue up with people like who I've met at conferences and things like that. You post that and it gives you some kind of credibility by association. Amazing. So by me saying something about Picasso, I'm also kind of implying that I know Picasso, and he gave me this wisdom, which in a kind of magical sense is true. Ha! In a magical sense, it's kind of true that there's some kind of lineage through which I have emerged, and part of that lineage is Picasso. Anyway, something along the lines of artists don't finish, they abandon. And that's what happens with me. And as I am now trying to embrace fully my neurodivergence and work with it and unmask, that doesn't mean that you, my listeners, get to hear everything and that my friends get to see everything. What it means is that rather than me trying to fit myself into a neurotypical mold, neurotypical as of 2024, then I will not be trying to fit myself into that mold. I will not be taking that as the default. My default is my default. And so I have to work around that. Knowing that I tend to abandon, it's part of my process now. So for any kind of neurotypical people who are listening, or people who place a high value on that kind of like being good and following the rules, um, that's going to be my new way. Sometimes you're going to get the version that's very tight and good, and there's 8 guests, and then we stop, and then um, there are announcements, and then we finish. Or I may abandon as well. I may just abandon. No, I say abandon. I did. I think there was 7 or 8 guests. The last guest was the amazing, the delightful, the wonderful, the ever-evolving Sarah Jean Rosito, who's a great friend, mentor, senpai, peer, sister to me. And my next guest is going to be released not it will be the third week of September, I think, 2024. And there's a very good reason why this person is kind of in an island of his own. First of all, I wanted to take August off completely. I did a lot of just lying on my sofa, looking out of the window, a lot of swimming, a lot of just kind of gently meeting people. Actually, there was quite a lot that happened during this summer in July and August. I think I'll do a review of that sometime, but that feels like something that should be written, like a little diary of the summer or something like that. I actually took part in a summer diary writing program as well, which was wonderful, run by the wonderful Joy Waller, who was also a guest on the last round of the Legends podcast, season 8, Skin in the Game. And she runs this summer diary group, which is very small, very intimate, and by invite only. I don't know how I managed to get myself an invite to that. And what we do is just on the daily, we do a diary. I actually missed a big chunk of that because I was taking a lot of time off social media. I wanted to do it completely off, but actually I actually really like social media. I can become very isolated if I'm not careful, because I love being in the hills, being on my own so much. So I don't want to become completely isolated. So I like to kind of drop in on Facebook, but rather than it being something that I do every day or that is kind of part of my daily routine, I'm trying to withdraw away from it as much as possible. Um, and so before I get into this session's kind of real focus, I just wanted to give a few updates. So today is September 6th, Friday, September the 6th as of the recording date, and this will release on the following Tuesday, which I think is the 11th. Yeah, I think it's September 11th. So um we have a clothes swap coming up on October the 5th. That's going to be at Blink Rapongi, our latest partner in this. And yeah, so that's going to be coming up on October 5th. And I'm taking a slightly different kind of business model for this one. I'm going to bring the clothing home and sort through it myself. The reason for this is because on the Victoria Close episode in season 8 of the Legends podcast, Victoria's a jeweler here in Japan. She's a really incredible creative influence, community builder, business coach, and maker here in Tokyo. Very well loved, very well liked. And she's been coming to the last 3 clothing swaps to sell her jewelry, which is all made of recycled kimono. And so it really fits the conscious consumption and sustainable style of this of the clothes swaps that I run, or that or any clothes swaps that are run in Tokyo, but that's particularly mine, is that kind of sense of conscious consumption, sustainable style, and trying to keep as much stuff out of above ground as possible, by which I mean not in landfill. So when I was talking to her and we were talking about the concept of mottainai, which is the backbone of her business, I asked her what it meant, and she said it's like the regret of throwing something away that could have been used. And that was like, ooh. And then I asked my husband what he took to mean mottainai, which is a Japanese word. And he said for him, it means that every single thing has a soul, which I love. And it made me understand him even better, even after having been together for 22 years. 22 years? 22 years. Bloody hell. We could have had adult kids and grandchildren by now. Oh, never mind. So, yeah, so he said everything has a soul, and that really aligns with the kind of animism of Shinto, but that's a whole other podcast. Maybe not for me to talk about because I'm not very well versed in it, but I understand it better these days. And the last time I took this stuff up to H&M, and I have never felt like this before, never. I felt regret. I looked at the stuff in the bags and I could see things I'd seen hanging up, and they were lovely. And there was some kind of not designer, but higher end high streets things in there that didn't get taken by anybody. Nobody wanted them in there, which I like as well, because it's nice that people treat it like a shopping session rather than just, oh, let's just take things for the sake of it. So I felt that sense of regret that we were talking about, and I thought, I have a bit more time on my hands now. I'm looking for new sources of income. And so I thought, why don't I make this? I mean, it'll be a very, very small source of income. Why don't I make this another tiny trickle of income? Why don't I deal with the clothes myself rather than handing it over to H&M? Before, I'd always liked the corporates to get involved on the ground level. But now I thought, that's not hitting it for me. And ironically, I don't know whether I felt something in the air as I was there. My contact there, Shige, who's a really great guy who had arranged all this stuff for us after Angela Ortiz Pettas had left H&M. He said, he announced that he was leaving. So he's left now. My contact there has left. So I don't know whether there was something in the ether when I was in there and I kind of felt that sense of regret. But I thought, actually, I want to deal with this myself now. Now, one of my good friends, Sarah, said to me, oh, hell no. No, no, no. I mean, she could probably see me crying into like 15 bags of clothes, but there's something inside me that's quite excited about this idea, dumping them into my office, going through them, sorting through them, and making bags up of like small, medium, large, extra large, and then deciding what to do with them from there. So do I sell them? Do I what am I going to do with them? Am I going to do a giveaway? Will I yeah, I don't know. The good items, what am I going to do with those? How's this going to work? Will I get a pop-up in Sushi and sell some secondhand clothes? I don't know. Anyway, I'm really interested in the options and opportunities that are out there. So let's see what happens next. All right. So there's that. So anyway, October 5th, clothes swaps on. If you're on my mailing list, you get a 700 yen discount. It's 4,000 yen to enter. The last time, or the time before last, I got Hunter Wellies and Alexander Wang for Adidas trainers, and those alone equal about 60,000 yen, which is probably about £400, something like that. So it's more than worth it to come and get your designer goodies. It doesn't take a lot to get your 4,000 yen's worth back. All righty then. So that's that. What else have we got coming up? Stupid things that people say in grief. So that is Grief and the Stupid Things That People Say workshop. That's coming up on September 19th. That's 2,000 yen per head. And that's just a great introduction to the Lighthouse Circle, the work of the grief circle that I run. And it's just a place for people to talk about the stupid things that people have said to them in grief. For example, if you said, oh, my aunt just died of lung cancer, and people's initial reaction is, did they smoke? Or my friend had a heart attack. Were they fat? My partner died. Oh, well, you're young. You'll find someone else. These kinds of, they're in a better place now. Well-meaning things that people say, or just thoughtless things that people say, or things to try and hide their awkwardness, but that are nonetheless frustrating, annoying, hurtful, damaging, add to the grief. So there's that. Then there's also what else is coming up? Oh, my birthday is on September 18th. So I'm going to be doing like a special coaching packages, like a limited number of special coaching packages I'm putting out there. And some people will get free psychometrics with that as well. What else? There are other things coming up as well. Okay, October also. Is it October? Yeah, October, the next live round of the Lighthouse Circle starts, and that's a 6-month program with monthly 90-minute calls together with all the content from the Lighthouse Circle. That's a really wonderful experience. Bittersweet, wonderful, but it's the deepest and most important work that I think I do, which kind of relates to today, what I'm kind of talking about on Creative Musings today. What else? Yes, the writing workshops, Ordinary Magic. Our next one, maybe something to do with the senses. We're thinking about that now. We'll meet about that next week, but I think that's going to start late autumn, maybe late October or early November, and that will run for 8 weeks, straddling Christmas and New Year, if you like, or whatever holiday you celebrate around that winter or midsummer time. Awesome. I think that's all for now. So I am going to move into some other stuff. So my guest next week is the incredible Matthew Dons, or Karamoon, you might know him as. And he is a good man, and he is incredibly generous and candid and talks a lot on this podcast, which when you have a podcast, you really want that. Or when you're in a dialogue with anybody, you want a kind of generosity in the dialogue you're having, in the conversation you're having. He is, by his own admission, shy. Fine. Interestingly enough, there was another dialogue about shyness with, I don't remember which season it was, but the amazing Kate Thompson, the sculptor, said that when she was young, she was incredibly shy, very self-conscious, and her father said to her, being shy is selfish. Isn't that interesting? And I was thinking, and it helped her to become less shy, or to kind of build the muscle to be more friendly. And she really is. She's a really friendly community builder. You listen to her talking. It's an interesting an interesting proposition. And I know for a fact that when I'm feeling like shy and self-conscious, it's all about me. It really is all about me. And I'm sure people are rolling their eyes now. Oh, you're not shy. You're not self-conscious. Yes, I am. I can be. But I just have a very, I'm extroverted on paper. I need a lot of recovery time. I need a lot of time on my own, but I get very self-conscious. But when I'm with people, I find that a well of generosity opens up and I'm able to be less shy. So I can get over that kind of introverted self that lives inside me and be, um, especially for extroverts, they need the dialogue, they need to verbalize, but that's my good listening skill too. I am gonna do a podcast about this because I think that it gets really twisted. Um, this introversion, extroversion thing. But my guest said he is naturally shy, but he talks a lot. I would say he is incredibly generous in his offers. And I was thinking to myself, what is that? What is this that he is so generous in talking? He talked all about his diagnosis, all about how he found out, all about how he feels about it, about his children, about like there's a lack of self-consciousness with him, a lack of kind of editing that is really, really impressive to me. And I thought, and this is what I wrote down here, when you are in a daily dialogue with death, you're not so self-conscious. You don't care so much about shyness because when you are in a daily dialogue with death, you've got nothing to lose. You literally have seen, and we're all in a daily dialogue with death, by the way, no matter what that means to you, we are all in a daily dialogue with death, some more than others. And for him, it became very present in 2016 when he was on holiday in the UK for 3 months. He received, after he talks about this during the podcast, but I'll give you a short version. He didn't feel too well. He went to the doctor. The doctor got a witchy feeling. Something's off here. He went back to the doctor. They did some tests. He had stage 4 cancer, stage 4 colon cancer. Stage 4 means that it's spread to other parts of your body. And while they didn't give him a prognosis, they tend not to these days, apparently. But when he researched the kind of cancer that he has, he discovered that the average or the best case scenario was under a year. Under a year. So since then, he has been in a daily dialogue with death. And we were supposed to record, and this is why there's a big gap between the Sarah Jean recording and this recording, but it also gave me the chance to have a completely free August. He got sick again. So he had booked in to record with me, and it would have been like the final guest of the season. But sadly, he got sick, and I don't remember. My memory is really off at the moment, and maybe I could talk about that as well. But my memory is really weird at the moment. Whereas I would have been able to recall that conversation and every detail of it. Now I can only recall that we had that conversation, but not what the detail was. But something happened, and he wasn't able to swallow properly. There had been, oh, I know what it was. There was a bile duct in his liver had got blocked, and therefore he was that fucks with everything then. So unfortunately, he had to cancel his oh, that's right, because one of the tumors had grown and was pushing against it, but it's in a really tricky place, so surgery is difficult. But also, and he talks about this on the podcast as well, surgery is really, really debilitating. I was very lucky with my surgery in that it didn't take me long to recover. I say that. I think it didn't take me long to recover at the time. So like within 2 weeks, I was walking 10K. But I actually think that my body itself, like that kind of thing is fine. But on a daily basis, I've been incredibly tired and just getting used to this new kind of body that I have. but that's all to do with the Menastorm. You can go back and see that on Creative Musings as well. Maybe it's season 6 of the Legends podcast. Okay, so yeah, so he talks about this, and he also got me thinking. So I was thinking that daily dialogue with death, um, and I was also thinking about really, really good men, and I've been lucky enough to get on a dialogue or get into dialogue. Well, it's one way because I'm listening to their dialogues with really, really good men. So, excuse me, bless me. Um, Good men. Yeah, amazing. So I have recently got into Questlove Supreme podcast, but there are many other what I would call good men podcasts out there, like men's men, manly men, people like Mark Commode and Simon Mayo, people like Questlove and all his guests. And I've just, oh my God, I've enjoyed it so, so, so much listening to him. And Trevor Noah as well. I've really been enjoying his podcast too. And I don't know, I don't remember how I got onto this particular kind of rabbit hole. This is quite a normal thing for me, is that I get interested by something and then I will Google it, or I will go to podcasts and search, and then I will find um certain things. So I don't know what it was. Maybe I was Googling Terence Trent D'Arby, or maybe Questlove Supreme's podcast came up for me, or maybe my YouTube. I know what it was. I was really enjoying Erica Badu. And so I was watching interviews with her, and she'd popped up into my algorithm because I follow Vogue, and she'd been on a Vogue cover, and then she'd done one of those, looking back on 25 years worth of outfits of hers. And then from that, Erica Badu being in my algorithm, then that pushes hip hop into my algorithm. And so then, because I really enjoy listening to her dialogues and conversations with people, I went on, I ended up on the Breakfast Club podcast. And from the Breakfast Club podcast, the Questlove podcast ended up in my algorithm. So then, oh, okay. And then I saw that Sanandra Maitreya, formerly known as Terence Trent D'Arby, was interviewed on there. And I was like, oh my God. And so I saved that so I could really savor it, because I loved Terence Trent D'Arby when he was Terence Trent D'Arby when I was young. It's like, I think it could be my number one ever concert, even ahead of Prince, that I've ever been to. Maybe. Um, yeah, I think so. It was terrific, you know? What would be my top 5 concerts I've been to? Definitely Terence Trent D'Arby. That's who he was at the time. Prince, definitely. Stevie Wonder, come on. I saw Stevie Wonder live in 2015. Oh, it was amazing. Um, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yes. Of course. Patti Smith. And then maybe Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi was amazing. I'm going to throw Cardiacs in there as well, because that just really speaks to a certain time in my life when I felt so alive. And I'm starting to feel alive again now. I'm starting to feel alive again now. And maybe I'll come to that now. Actually, yeah, let's go there. So, anyway, I've ended up listening to these podcasts because there's 2 ways I'm going to go with this now, but I can feel my gorgeous, gorgeous neurodivergent brain splitting off into many fireworks. Where do we look? Where do we look? Okay, so 2 things: daily dialogue with death and recovery and coming back to life. And the other one is good men and the Questlove podcast, and how this has really been giving me so much, so much, so much life. And laying down neural pathways as well. So fragility of life. Oh, okay. So I'll go to just the top level stuff for now. So, oh, good men. So I've listened to Questlove and his team interviewing Johnny Marr. Johnny Marr was the guitarist with the Smiths, who I've never seen. And it was just great. I mean, here's the thing. These guys are so so obsessed with music. It's not obsessed actually, because obsession's more like me when I get down a rabbit hole with a certain artist or certain something with podcasts, or read a certain thing, or get really into one thing at a time. They have, it's like it's such an inherent part of them, like writers, artists, like Tracy Emin as an artist. It's so part of them that their 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 whole life is consumed with this. They know the history of music. They know the history of the music they're listening to. And people can meet across cultures in this place where their commitment, it's just inside their being. Like Questlove is such a maestro, a master, uh, um, he's what's the word? Aficionado. He's such an aficionado of music, obsessed. And so they interview these people that, I mean, even Levine from the Maroon 5 was on there. That's not my taste in music at all, but listening to them speak to each other with such passion and I how would you call it? Like it's like they can't not create. It's like they can't not make things. And there's a part of me that's like that as well. And I guess that's why I do this, because I need to be creating, but it's really hard for me to write consistently. But this is good. I sit down with a microphone and talk and work things out. And I absolutely love it. I really love talk. I think that's a lot of where the generosity comes from inside me. And I think when I talk about generosity, it's like the willingness of people to put out in the world what they have, in spite of however they feel, self-conscious, shy, introverted, extroverted, too much, too little, whatever it is, the compulsion, the the deep sense of wanting to have the things that they have out in the world is greater than it being all about them and protecting themselves. And that's been really tough for me over the last couple of years. In fact, it's been really tough for me all the time. And I really admire myself for that. Um, it's not easy, this kind of compulsion to verbalize things, because people have opinions. They do have opinions. And, you know, when you have a need to verbally process information, it can be derided so violently by people who consider themselves to be gentle souls. And I find that really discombobulating and unsophisticated and distasteful. And so I really, really, really love these interviews with people who have a deep generosity for their craft, for what they're talking about, for their expertise, whatever it is. And I find the same with the grief circle that I run, and the same with people who are creative, and the same with people who are in a daily dialogue with death, is that uh they know something beyond protecting themselves. And I find that quite hard. I feel like there's at least half of me that I still try to protect very hard. And I have to do that. And this is something that I will come to in a minute in this daily dialogue with death conversation, because I had a conversation with another friend this week. But I'm going to just come back to the very good men and the very good conversations. And my particular favorite right now, Questlove and his gang. Um, so, uh, on there of there's been Jennifer Lewis, a very good woman, and I mean she as well is just everything is out there, and she's very candid. Again, a daily dialogue with death. Her particular dialogue with death was around what used to be called manic depression is now called bipolar illness. And she's very candid about having that under medicated control now, but you can still see that she's fulsome. So rather than allowing shame to curl her up in a way that I can make shame curl me up sometimes, is she's still kind of just oh, just so generous. And she shouts and she preaches and she's just fulsome in the fullness of her disease, bipolar disorder. But she's got it out under control. She says at one point, they say, like, is it under control now? And she says, oh, yes. If I wasn't medicated now, oh, that's right. The kids of the Breakfast Club ask her if that, not kids, men, the men of the Breakfast Club ask her, are you medicated now? And she says, if I wasn't, I would be standing on this desk now. And then, it's that sense that she still occupies the fullness of her spirit and her brightness without shame. She could curl away with shame, right? She could have curled up with shame at this disorder that she has, at this need to verbally and physically be out in the world with all her intonation and juiciness and phenomenal out there-ness and too muchness. And she calls herself the mother of Black Hollywood, and she's written a book about her joy in these streets, and she's just so full and so sincere, and so she performs this incredible fullness. I just want to say fullness. There's this ripeness about her that she's just she's juicy, man. She's so juicy. Yeah, so good men. We've got Johnny Marr. Today I listened to Andre 3000. Oh my God. And now I'm just halfway through listening to his Flute album, which I am obsessed with as well. So that's my latest thing. Last night's obsession was Kanye West. So I went to Kanye West Spotify, and I will come to why this part of this. There's another piece of this story as well. Sanandra Maitreya, formerly known as Terence Trent D'Arby. I was completely like, I was so devoted to him when I was young. I went to see him in 1988 at the Liverpool Royal Court and was transfixed by him. Incredible. The support act was Roachford, now popularized by Alan Partridge. Yeah, so Sanandra Maitreya, I mean, he's otherworldly. He's one of the most beautiful men I have ever laid my eyes on to this date, ever. I had a Q magazine which had an interview with him in it about the time his daughter was born as well. I can remember being in France and just reading it over and over and over again. And that particular Q magazine, which is an old glossy music magazine from the UK, was one of my favorite ever. Like, I can literally remember my favorite magazine editions from when I was young. Can't remember a single sentence of Japanese in full, but there we are. Or a conversation, the details of a conversation I had 10 minutes ago, but I can remember things like that. So I'm just very grateful for my memory and the way it is. And this new memory, it doesn't feel like I'm in decline or anything like that. I feel like I'm in a new era of memory. Some people describe brain fog. I don't feel foggy. It feels sharp. But what it feels like is that the neural pathways connect and disconnect really quickly now, whereas they were just connecting everything before, and I was remembering so much. I wonder if I've just come to some kind of fullness. Of course, over the last 3 years, let's say 3 to 5 years, everything's changed for me again. You can go back and listen to the Menastormer episodes. You know, I don't know where exactly I am yet, but I'm post hysterectomy. Am I still in perimenopause? Because I've still got one ovary left. So I'm on a cycle, but of course there's no physical things happen. And then sobriety, almost 2 years now, and ADHD. There's just this incredibly new landscape of neurology, physiology for me that has been frustrating, but at the moment feels quite it feels exciting. And so while it can be very frustrating that I can't remember things in great detail, it feels almost like it's just I'm learning a new way to live. It's like learning a new language of self. And I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of into it. And I don't this is just coincidental or ironic, or perhaps it's serendipitous, or perhaps there's something, factual in it, but it's never been researched. But I'll make it mean something. Let it be huge, as we say, copyright Gretchen Murer. And let it be huge is I feel like I'm coming back to life again right now. I say this with great trepidation and great care and a little not hesitation, but trepidation, I think, a little anticipation, a little care, a little care. There's another word out there that's not connecting in my mind right now, but I'll just say care. Is that, yeah, 9 months, almost 9 months out from having had my hysterectomy, I feel like some kind of rebirth happening. I love the summer and we're entering the season change, and the season changes can sometimes be a little bit depressing for me, not because I hate it when the nights get darker and things like that, because I find that really cozy, but just for some people, the season transition is quite something happens to them. And sometimes that can happen to me. It can happen in spring for me as well. There is a theory, one that I do not have anything to hand to back it up with right now, but I will. I've read it recently and I can't remember the detail. But in fact, there's two seasons. There's summer and there's winter, and then what we've tagged autumn and spring are actually kind of transitional times. That transition into those two main seasons, and those transitional times can be quite tricky for some people. I don't know why. I might meditate on that or think about it. And I am one of those people for whom those I like it when the season lands. So I like it when we land in winter, all the leaves have fallen off the trees, everything's kind of cold and crisp, and the skies are blue, and you kind of there might be a bit of snow coming in the place where I am at now, which is not dissimilar to where I was raised, apart from the beautiful hot weather we've got now. But that kind of transition from one season to another. So I love summer. I love it. I love when rainy season ends and the day that you open the door and oh, it's here. It's like opening an oven door and it's just like woof. it it's so hot. You need to go slowly. You can swim. You can swim any time of year, of course, but it's just like, for me, what I enjoy is I like putting one item of cloth on my body and then we're done for the day. I don't need to think about having a cardigan for the evening or a scarf just in case or blah, blah, blah. Or that when you go for a swim, you need to quickly get dressed so you don't catch a chill, things like that. These things I love. Then I love winter. Again, there's no effing around. You need a jacket when you go out and a hat and some gloves. Like it's simple. At home, you need to get cozy and warm. And there's foods that are just that's for this. But the two transitional times, I can actually feel quite depressed. But it's good to know. All these things are good to know. This is what I'm loving about this kind of eldership that I'm starting to enter now, is that it's good to know for me that there's certain times that I'm going to feel depressed. It's good for me to know that a lot of the symptoms that I'm feeling that are kind of different or new are absolutely aligned with a woman of my age having the experience that I've had, right? So there's similarities to perimenopause and menopause across the board, but for each person, it's slightly different. Mine's been brutal. Talk about daily dialogues with death. Mine has been brutal. It's been hard, really, really hard. But it's given me this knowledge and ability to be able to coach my people better, because I get that they may be going through something and there's these kind of rhythms. But once I know, oh, this is entirely part of one of the experiences of being in this particular stage of my life. And because it's in this stage, it will pass. Hopefully. right? So Jennifer Lewis also talks about this kind of thing as well. At the age of 67 now, she's wise. She has a lot to impart. She's my senpai. She's the mother of Black Hollywood, but I'll take her too. I'll take her as an auntie. And yeah, these women who are, we need them. You may find them annoying because they're just too much, too extroverted, too out there. There's just a lot of them. But without those women spreading this word, this stuff wouldn't get out there. And I kind of feel like that might be one of my missions. I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I know I don't want to go into specific ADHD stuff, but I do want to help women, especially, but also maybe any population who find finances difficult. That's something I'd like to help with somehow. Somehow that's something, people who have difficulty with spreadsheets, with following through on things. I have had a monumental amount of support. Like literally, I've had friends come to me on Zoom for 2 hours and be with me and make sure that I get through things. And at least 10 times I could have dismounted because I just got so frustrated and overwhelmed with it. And they just gently said to me, stay with me. Again, another shout out to Lindsay Sourdough. She contacted me after my last one and said, I hear you gave me a shout out. And then she went and listened. She goes, my God, that was a ride. Because it was another stream of consciousness, creative musings. And then I had another friend, Laurie Henderson, shout out to Laurie Henderson, who got me to tell her all of my financial stuff and then gave me a one-pager of from where I am now, what I would need and what my pension's going to look like and how I can invest and what kind of financial agency that I have right now. I could never have done that. I can't do it. But these people are helping to simplify things for me, things that they found either difficult and got through or easier than me. It's worse for me. I find it really difficult to do this stuff. And then my dad this week, shout out to Stuart Everett, sat down with me and we went into the national savings. He helped me to log into the national savings and I wanted to buy some premium bonds. I wanted to transfer some money from here, put it into the premium bonds, but I just need somebody with me to talk me through that and to make sure that I don't dismount, because I will dismount when I become overwhelmed, not knowing what to do next and so on. But if somebody's there, then I will focus on it, right? So it's really interesting to do that. And now, having done it 3 times with him, sitting with him, now I'm able to do it myself. What I would love to do in the future is something around not empowering people, not recommending books, not offering them a course, but literally sitting with people and helping them to get agency when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever it is. And create something solid for themselves. People who particularly struggle with this kind of thing are people who are not in corporate roles or not in like paid roles. So people have their own businesses, people who have ADHD, people who are very, very creative and focus on creativity, but neglect the finances part, people who have big hearts, who may have some kind of resistance towards money. And I know because I'm in like money mindset groups and things like that, and they're great. And we do all this stuff to try and get over your money mindset issues and blah, blah, blah. And you can manifest and all this kind of stuff with the best will in the world. Like me trying to manifest, um, just buying premium bonds was never going to happen. I needed somebody to sit down with me, body double me, or in the case of Lindsay and Laurie, actually do some of the work for me with me and just help me to manage my nervous system, because that's basically what it is. Lay down new neural pathways which tell me you actually can do this. Not you can do it like a cheerleader, because that's absolutely useless. The actual going through the experience, sitting by my side, not rolling their eyes, being incredibly patient, treating me like a full human and taking me through that. I have derailed so far from what we were talking about, but daily dialogue with death, um, and good men and good women. Now we're talking about all of it, but like there's something so uniquely gorgeous about good men, that I just love. I was talking about Terence Trent D'Arby and my love for him and Prince. Yeah, Elvis Costello, he was on as well. And he's from Liverpool, so I feel that kind of kinship with him. But also, he's a total music geek to the point where they Questlove had to have his what his producer Sugar had to come and do the interview because Elvis Costello and Questlove would just go off on, like, they would be talking about an album and then one song off one album, and then they would head off down these mad rabbit holes together because they both have such, and not competitive. Let me tell you, not competitive. And this is the difference. This is what the good men are like. They are iterative and generative. Oh, it's so delicious. It's so delicious. It's so compelling. And I only hope that 1% of this goes into me so I can seek out these iterative conversations and have them. And it's such a delight to watch this British guy and these Black American guys that, and I say that because that's also it, that may be something to do with the lack of competition, is that their love for music and their particular cultural space that they occupy creates this very generative and iterative space to be in. Um, so yeah, this and Elvis Costello, his real name isn't that. I think it's McFarlane. I could Google it right now, but I'm not going to. But he's Irish by background, and his father was a musician as well. And yeah, so it's just, oh God, I love it so much. They they just have this easy, amazing kind of, and I love the rabbit holes. I'm like, oh my God, this is fascinating. But then they also have an agenda of questions that they want to get through that they need to get through. So actually, Sugar has to kick out this guy, kick out Questlove so that he and Elvis Costello can have the conversation they want to have. I want to hear the conversation they didn't have. I want to hear them picking apart the origin stories and the lineages of each of it. I mean, they were going I mean, they were going back through generations and sidesteps, and this person knows this person, and they were filling in the blanks for people. Oh yeah, this person from Liverpool, this and that, and it's just fascinating. I highly recommend it. Andre 3000 today, the questions that he asked him were just so juicy and sweet. I cannot wait to listen to the rest of his flute, his flute album, which was derided by many people, but I won't have that. If people aren't producing the pop music that you want them to produce, they're just such creative forces. There's such a creative wellspring that comes from them that they're willing to put out something so left field. It makes me filled with joy and positivity and life and realness. It, it's hard to describe, but it also reminds me of the conversation that I had with the very good man, Matthew Don's Caramoon. Like, he is so focused on his mission. He is so focused on being a channel for the things that he needs to have come through him. Um, for him, it's the cancer charity non-profit organization that he's set up, which is called Make Cancer History, which is phenomenal. And the way that he talks me through it is just brilliant. So he has two arms to his kind of expertise. Number one is technology, and number two is marketing and entrepreneurship. And the thing that marries these two things together is his uh, insatiable reading appetite. He loves to read, process information, and then turn it back to people. So he's very well read in marketing and entrepreneurship, and he's very well read in technology. But this served him incredibly well when it came to his cancer diagnosis and turning that back into useful stuff. And he's got this YouTube channel upon which he talks about his cancer. I mean, he was laughing, saying, "Oh, it's embarrassing. Those first videos, I was crying on the videos, the ones that he made 8 years ago." And that his face is all kind of looks like he's got burns because the chemotherapy that he was undergoing gave him like these lesions on his face and stuff. Um, back in the day, he looks quite normal now, actually, but he's not. So this is just yeah, his generosity in sharing and being useful and turning back the information that he has to people is I'd say it's inspiring, but that feels quite trite and incomplete to me. It feels very it is inspiring, but it also speaks to people really leaning into their natural abilities and appetites. And his appetite for reading, marketing, and technology have served him incredibly well in this sense. The area in which I would applaud him is overcoming shyness. What he said, like he's a naturally shy person and a naturally quite cynical person, but he's overcome this shyness and cynicism in his or deliberately built muscle around that in order to be able, well, actually, cynicism served very, very well when you are looking for cures to cancer and when you are looking for ways in which to um, live a more healthful life, because there's so much bollocks out there and very, very dangerous bollocks. And he says, on the regular, every week, on the cancer forums that he's in on Facebook and so on, there are people dying because they want to cure their cancer with green juice and so on. And then there's always somebody out there who will say that they cured their cancer in this way, and then people will try that and they may um you know shave precious years, weeks, months, um and not just that, but quality of life off their lives through trying to heal themselves from within. There was something in the Guardian recently actually about Elle Macpherson, I think, curing her breast cancer through natural means. I can't I can't get into it, but he is a source of genuine. He has a formula for this, which if you listen to the podcast, which will come out on Tuesday, the oh, not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after. Is that the 18th? That's my birthday. Hang on, let's see. Oh no, the 17th. I beg your pardon. So Tuesday the 17th. So this will come out on the 10th of September 2024. He has a formula for this, and it's a formula that I feel that I can apply in many different areas of my life. I love the formula because it's to do with waves, and it's wonderful. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with drinking green juice, being healthful, taking your vitamins and so on. However, there are many grifters out there who will sell you on things that but will also try and steer you away in order to market for their own courses, minerals, green juice supplies, will steer you away or try to plant seeds that there's something wrong with the medical system, which there is plenty of it. There's plenty wrong with that. And again, Matthew Dons has done a terrific amount of research into this and is very happy to bring forth the cynical side of that. But he is doing that from within that medical system and finding what kind of cures and help can help him and you and other people to survive cancer for longer. He has survived cancer with his formula. It's not some special formula that he's going to sell to you, by the way. He started an MPO with free resources and he freely spoke on my free podcast about this as well. But I just don't want to give away too much of it because I want you to hear it from him, because I will ineptly deliver this back to you if I'm not careful. Yeah, so good men, daily dialogue with death. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about was um in terms of the daily dialogue with death. I was talking to one of my very good friends this week, and I was talking about how, with trepidation, with not exactly hesitation, but mindfulness, and saying, like, I feel like I'm coming back to life. I'm kind of emerging as the summer's closing and the air is cooling, and my birthday's coming, and I'm 9 months post surgery, and I'm 2 years, almost 2 years sober. I feel like something's happening. And she said to me, I have no doubt that you will come back bright and will make full recovery and get back up to where you were before. And I said, I don't. I'm scared. And not everybody does recover. Some people don't recover. So if I put this against the backdrop of the kind of theme of today of like what it's like to be in a daily dialogue with death is this. Some women in their perimenopause don't recover. They don't. Most people do. Most people go through some kind of change. So for some people, I have friends where their system just wound down to nothing. And then that was that. I know some people who completely lost their libido and then went on to HRT to bring it back. I know people who have had similar symptoms to me, where there was such terrific hemorrhaging that they were anemic. And then the hormonal landscape became so chaotic that the depression and the chaos was incredibly life damaging. And coupled with that, kind of drinking reaching fever pitch, and which can happen actually. It's something that happens to women in perimenopause. Their relationship to alcohol can change. And that, I would say, now that I'm reflecting on it in this moment, certainly happened to me. But that's something I'm going to need to reflect more on before I say anything too uh, finite about it. But it does feel like that was part of it. However, it's not the whole story for me. It was an ongoing thing. And again, you can listen to that 1 year sober on the Creative Musings, um, where I talk very candidly about my relationship with alcohol since I was 14. So, yeah, daily dialogue with death. Some people don't recover, as in they then drop out of society and fall into kind of poverty, perhaps, or they never work again. They take such a big chunk out of their work life that it's hard for them to, like, at the age of like 45 to 55 is a time where certainly the men who find their way into senior positions and have leadership potential will continue to build that on their career, all being well. And that is like the most, so we're talking really about the most privileged, top of the pyramid here. But women who are in the same level. So let's just talk about that, like small percentage of people for now. Will start to, if you start to get brain fog when you're in an executive position, like if you're in a C role or you're, on track to be in an CEO role, or you're on track to be in a director role, like if that's where you're going and your particular brain chemistry and so on has taken you to that point, and then suddenly your perimenopause hits and you are one of the people for whom brain fog is a reality. That wasn't a massive one for me. For me, like wild depression. I don't know that I'd say mood swings, but mood swings just sounds a bit cliche to me, a little distasteful. It was more like mood spikes, mood chaos, mood insanity. It felt so intense and so bright white hot that it was not good. Um, so like there's just no way that I would have been able to maintain the kind of relationships or executive function that would have, I mean, I would never have been in that kind of position, but I'm trying to keep things vague, is to maintain that is going to be far, far more difficult than your male counterparts. So you may drop out, or by drop out, I mean you may decide to just stay in one position or move yourself into an individual contributor role, or you may have to take time off, which then may go against you on your record, or you may just decide to pull yourself out of an executive path route altogether because you simply can't handle it for that time you're in your perimenopause or menopause, or you become so depressed that you can't. So that's one track there. And these are all, I'm being very vague here, but these are all conversations that I've had with women who have suddenly kind of gone, oh, can I or can't I? Then, of course, there are women who then get onto HRT or medicate for if suddenly their ADHD has come through during the perimenopause, that they then start to medicate for that as well. I haven't gone down that route yet because I'm not sure what to medicate for first. I kind of thought HRT would be the best, but I'm just seeing what happens. I'm keeping an eye on things. I don't know why. I think it probably drives my assistant insane, but I just want, and I've got nothing against medication at all, nothing against it. I think it's brilliant, and I highly encourage. I mean, what a time to be alive when we have all these options available to us. We have so many different modalities, physical modalities, breathing modalities, medical modalities, so many, options for feeling better. But from the very, very kind of medical driven perspective, yeah, get on HRT, replace your hormones, get your libido back, get your brain function back. I've spoken to women who were approaching 50 who'd never even heard of hormone replacement therapy, never even heard of it. So, so so what I'm talking about here is in daily dialogue with death, some people, some women, or some people just simply don't recover. They have a crash, and I had a crash, a big breakdown, enter a terrible menopause, terrible perimenopause, or a terrible period of grief, or a terrible period of depression, and never recover. So I never, ever take it for granted that I'm just going to recover. And this is where the trepidation comes in, or I think there's a word beginning with A that I'm trying to grasp. I'm going to look it up while I'm actually on this call. So where they don't recover, and that's why I'm frightened. I'm frightened to kind of say, oh, I can feel myself on the up. I can feel myself on the up. And this good friend did say to me that she could feel my spark coming back. But and I feel it too. I feel it as I'm talking to you, but I'm being very deliberate now about how I do that. And I also don't take for granted that not everybody recovers. So if we go up the bell curve, like I said, like some people just have shocking perimenopauses and menopauses. And I would put myself into that bracket, like terrible. It was like, it's touch and go. Have I recovered or haven't I recovered? But as I said, for me, there was just those three things collided all at once: ADHD, perimenopause, and sobriety all crashed together at once and crashed me. I'm so proud of me because I've still been doing so many things and keeping so many things afloat and maintaining my partnerships and starting new partnerships. But there's just certain areas that I'm very, very, I just have to be very, very careful and mindful of that. It's almost like what I was talking about before with shyness. It's like I have to be very mindful of the toddler sober person inside me who's just still so confused and doesn't know what's going on. Then there's the baby, like post-fertility baby of me, which is like getting used to this completely new hormonal landscape and wombless landscape. And then there's like a teenager there as well who like 4 or 5 years ago realized they have ADHD and is starting to unmask that little by little and not trying to fit the neurotypical mold, because otherwise this particular conversation would sound very, very different. If I was trying to do that, I would have a 10-part thing timings on each thing. But instead, what I have is I have a whole page full of notes of things that I want to hit. And then we get there when we get there, and we get there in a circular way that I talk. And then I just trust you, the listener, to be able to make sense of that in your own way. I don't think you need a number one, number two, number three, which is what a lot of people would feed us the idea that we need. It doesn't need to be 38 minutes long. I'm not going to say I respect people's time, so this is going to be short, because I respect people's time. I respect my time. I respect your time. I respect Chronos time. I expect I respect all the different modes of time. So and one of them is this kind of sauntering conversation. And I just have to trust that you will be able to pick out what you can from it, um, while I remain unmasked and not trying to fit a neurotypical model. If you're neurotypical, it's maybe a bit much for you. And if you got this far and you are neurotypical, congratulations. You're doing so well. I'm so proud of you. It's like, it can't be easy. So, and then daily dialogue with death. Some people don't recover and die. Some people don't recover and die. So if they're self-medicating, maybe they drink themselves to death. Maybe their alcoholism tips, their binge drinking tips into something far, far more difficult to manage. Maybe they get in the car and drive it into another car and they don't recover. Maybe they lose their footing and fall over a balcony. Maybe they die. Maybe a menopausal woman dies. I can think of three, and I can think of three women in there between the ages of 45 and 55 who died in the last 5 years by either their own hand or in circumstances that were deemed difficult, which is kind of coded language for by one's own hand. Some people don't recover. And this is why I have been extremely careful, cautious, apprehension. There we go. That's the word I was looking for, with some apprehension. Yeah. And so I'm optimistic. I lost all hope, but I can feel hope. And we talk about this. This is what Matthew and I talk about as well when we talk about his condition and his cancer and his. We're all terminal. Every human being is terminal. Every single human being is terminal, but his terminal is closer, or has been closer, or feels closer than somebody who's not living with cancer. And we talk about this. We talk about hope. And we talk about optimism, and he defines the difference between hope and optimism, which I found really, really interesting. So I lost all hope about 3 years ago. Not hope of living, but just hope of some of my more aspirational thoughts, some of my kind of big ideas. I just lost hope. And at the same time, I was losing hormones and my hormonal landscape was changing. And at the same time, I was losing iron in my body. And at the same time, I was I was isolated in Japan and hadn't been able to return to my home country and see my people. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Let's just throw that into the mix as well. I haven't even mentioned that, this all occurred during a pandemic. I went sober at the end of a pandemic. I was having perimenopause in a pandemic. My clients were having a terrible time during a pandemic. It's like, wow. And I was looking after my coaching clients, but not myself. And I don't say that in a victim way, because I didn't know I wasn't looking after myself. I thought I was fine. I wasn't. And my coach said to me, my lovely coach, Grace McIntyre, said to me, Sarah, what does self-care look like to you? And it was like a gut punch. I always in my therapy and in my coaching sessions commit to telling the truth. And every time I took a breath to say something, I tripped. We in coaching we call that being on an edge. It's called edge behavior, where it's like your language becomes stoppy starty because any set pieces that you had, I think that's when you're starting to tell the truth and unmask. Couldn't get it out. And I said, I don't know. And it was heartbreaking to me. Even now I can feel myself getting upset thinking about that version of myself where it's like I had no idea what self-care looked like to me. Because I had set pieces and I listened to my coaching clients tell me what it means to them. But for me, what it meant was a lot of dismantling, a lot of questioning, it meant hitting bottom because my ability to tolerate and my ability to mask was so finely tuned and still is. But I'm not willing to do a boundary bulldozing through my life. Uh, okay, again, stoppy starty. I'm at an edge, so I'll have to inquire about that when I get off the phone. But it's like on off the phone, off the mic. Um, is yeah. Oh, interesting. So I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but what I did instead of kind of consciously trying to think about it, so really in my head. So I know nothing of chakras, but I'm just going to say what I do know because it's helpful to have a map on the body. Is I think there's a throat one, and then there's a third eye one, and then there's a crown one. And I don't know, but for me, it feels like it was all very much neck up, throat chakra up. Everything was very up there. And what I needed to do was get further down into something a bit less wordy and find my way into self-care through that. And it had to be things I'd never done before. And I think that some teachers arrived in my life to help me with that. And those teachers were Trisha Hersey. Her work is for Black women. I've said this before, but there's an adjacent practice I feel that white women need to do because we're in the same system that's doing the same damage and the same harm. And if we do it alongside one another, then hopefully there'll be some lineage um, care that happens and ancestral care that happens that can that can meet somewhere out in the ether. But it also just means that I am able to stay that I have my eyes open to whatever it is trying to pull my self-care away from me. So I have done a lot of lying around and looking out the window and thinking and not thinking and pulling away. And this is so there's that. I have to be in a daily dialogue with death to keep myself safe from myself and to keep myself safe from falling into depression and to keep myself in a caring mode for myself and consciously apprehensive of so consciously following threads of hope, but not jumping full in. And again, Matthew talks about this. Matthew Dons talks about this in his quest to keep finding the next cure for his cancer and keep staying alive for as long as he can so he can be with his children for as long as he possibly can. And that could be that he extends his life to 70 or 80. It could be that, right? Who knows? There are people who've been living with chronic illnesses who were expected to die, who have found a way to extend their life with these things far and long. How wonderful. Um, so for me, what it means to me now is that I'm not going back to anything. There's no going back to the hormonal landscape that I used to have. There's no going back to the me that was able to manage my mood and the rhythm of my life and day and the depression that lives inside my head with alcohol. I am not doing that anymore. That is would be a terrible idea. But what I feel now is a kind of juiciness and there's a potential. I don't know if hope's quite the right word, but potential. One of the things I have to keep a very strong eye on is what gets on my nerves. So what can take me down the wrong rabbit hole? And social media was one of those things. So Instagram and Facebook, both of which I said at the top of this podcast, I love. I love both of them. They have let my business be what it is. They're an amazing tool for communication, but I have to reimagine my relationship to them because it can I can get annoyed once I'm in there, and once I'm derailed, I can be derailed for quite some time, hours, sometimes days. So I've started to listen to more music, like Andre 3000 today, Kanye yesterday, lots and lots of different music. And there are three things that brought me to this in my daily dialogue with death, in my daily dialogue with what's going to improve and enhance my life. And music, musicians, art, artists, these are a common golden thread that run through the survival and the joy of human beings. You watch carefully where governments start making cuts in these areas in education. There's going to be problems. There's going to be problems, you know? We need access to arts. We need access to libraries. We need access to musical instruments. We need access to paints. We need access to the self-expression that everybody can use, but so the artists can float to the top, express themselves in the way they need to express themselves, and not be swallowed up by society and die. You know, it's a big problem in the UK. I understand young men dying from suicide. I don't know the statistics. That's all I can remember. Please forgive me. I'm not going to go in and look at that now. It's just off the top of my head. These people could have been in Oasis, you know? These people could have been in the Beatles if they had access to these places. All right, I digress. Of course, I digress. I love that about myself. Oh my God. I should call this podcast I Digress. I'm sure there's a podcast out there called I Digress. All right. So, what is the route for me listening to more music? Okay, we got rid of our television. So, our television now is under a crocheted blanket that my grandma crocheted in our bedroom. K, my husband one day just said, I've had enough of the television, unplugged it, took it upstairs because he would just come and turn it on, and that was that. And we have started to talk to each other more. We watch different things on the computer or the iPhone. But what I've started doing is doing word puzzles and listening to music or listening to podcasts. I love podcasts or watching YouTubes or whatever. Or sometimes at night, I will download the Instagram app or the Facebook app and then watch them. Yeah. So, but it was our 18th wedding anniversary this year. And so I thought, what shall I get for us for our 18th wedding anniversary? And 18 is a special number for Casey and I. We were both born on the 18th of our respective months. He proposed to me on the 18th of the month he proposed to me. My mum and dad used to live at number 18. 18 is our number. And our official wedding day is on the 18th as well, the day we went and signed the papers. So it was our 18th wedding anniversary this year. And I thought, what shall I get for us? Right. I'm on a budget at the moment. And also, we have enough, we have enough stuff. For his 30th birthday, I got him a Tag Heuer watch. For his 40th, I did a big party for him. I don't know what I got him. But this time around, I was like, I know it's a wedding celebration. So I will get us pair Spotify. So I paid for Spotify and it's been a game changer actually. And yeah, it's been a game changer. It's been brilliant. So I've paid for Spotify for us, which means I have access to everything with no adverts. It's so relaxing. I love it. Um, so I paid for that. So that's just the access though, but still I'll spend hours scrolling Facebook and scrolling reels on Instagram. I find it all very entertaining and nice and easy for my brain. So what I do now is I actually delete the apps off my phone, so that it's not easy to access them. And I only download them like once a day, and then I'll delete them again. And then I'll just quickly go in and have a look at it. So then I'm listening to these podcasts and to music, and I'm using the podcasts as a way into the music as well. I have my record player here as well. I only have 6 records here because they're heavy. Um, and so I think all these things are starting to help me build back. Now, again, I'm a coach, and part of my, ministry and my mission in life is to little by little enhance the lives of others through questioning their social norms, and to co-create different scenarios for the future with people, and then help them to get there. Right. So, but I'm again, I have great trepidation for kind of preaching too much. I do preach though, don't I? I do love it. But I'm looking at every single thing that I can do right now to strengthen my spirit, and to strengthen my survival, and to strengthen and to make my daily dialogue with death um more fulsome, more fulsome. And I am feeling like, and also just recognizing that I have an adult part, I have the teenage part that's, entering, is starting to really, really be in conversation with ADHD, and really, really, really running with that. And then I have the toddler part, which is the one who's in a totally different conversation with sobriety now than I was in the first months, weeks, months, year, where it was just, oh man, it was just hot, white knuckling every emotion that I'd ever been using that to suppress. and finding new ways to enjoy myself in social situations, or just sitting at home. My God, I used to enjoy a bottle or two of wine while watching YouTube. It was the time of my life, just on my own at home, going through, like, starting off with Echo and the Bunnymen, and then letting the uh the algorithm take me on a trip into my past, and just enjoying that. So I'm starting to find new ways to be in the world, and with these new podcasts I'm listening to, and really kind of tapping into the spirit of really, I mean, good women, yes, but good men, you know their spirit, their spirituality, their iterativeness, their generative, their staying in their business, their creative activism, their artfulness. I just find it so, right now, so healing. I use that word very sparingly, and this is the first time I've used it in this conversation. Again, I'm not going to lay claim that, like, and if you just sign up today, you will. I'll tell you what, I can guarantee you. If you sign up today, I can guarantee you that you will walk out of my event with some new clothes that somebody else wore before you. The best I've got for you. If you join my grief circle, I guarantee you that we will take you through 6 sessions of content and conversation that will give you some options of how to deal with your grief if you want to. It may have absolutely no impact on you whatsoever. But what I can say is this: every single person who went through the last round of the grief circle, who were new users, joined our lifetime membership. And that to me tells me that we've been doing something good. Anyway, but that's evidence-based, right? I'm not going to but I'm not going to tell you, join our circle and we will heal your grief. No. I ran a saunter and frolic retreat with Angela Ortiz Petas recently, and it was like, one of the things was no healing. There'll be no healing here. This is not a healing space. And one of the comments we got afterwards was, I know you said it wasn't going to be a healing space, but somehow I feel somehow healed. I also felt a little bit healed from that session too. I'm sure it created a little pivot point for me in this trying to recover from an enormous crash. And I bear in mind, and as I said to my friend last week, not all people recover. Some people die by accident, some people die from suicide. And some people just are never able to re-enter society in any full way again because their nervous system has been thrown too far over an edge. And I would say that my nervous system got thrown over an edge, but because of my particular specific makeup and uh, tastes and appetites and training and willingness and ability, not just willingness, by the way, ability, like my capability and my body's, whatever my body is just doing for me right now, and whatever I'm doing, which has been a lot of just literal lying down rest, walks. I live in a beautiful place as well. Like, so I just I'm literally looking at trees. I will sit and look at my plants for half an hour in the morning while I drink a cup of tea. And I'm in a dialogue with them. Um, I was gonna say not actual dialogue, but sometimes it is. Um, but like there are many things that I'm trying to do um, to pull in a really strong and to pull in the potential for the future. I don't exactly know what that is because I could do everything and still not recover. So it's not like a recovery, it's like a recovery to get back to normal. Um, and I've crashed. And maybe this is a little bit like Matthew and his abject generosity with what he's willing to share about what's happening for him, or with for him to him at the moment. And in the last 8 years is what have you got to lose? You know, what else could you lose? How much further down can I go than just the abject desperation, the physical symptoms, the abandoning the thing that was helping me to manage every day and to enjoy myself, you know, but was also putting me in blackout, injuring me, endangering myself, endangering my friendships, endangering my relationships, endangering my credibility, endangering every aspect of my life. Fucking my liver was being fucked hard by booze, and I loved it. But now, you know, I'm my alcohol freedom coach, alcohol mindset coach, Kath Elliott. She talks about this a lot. There's something else on the other side of it. There's enjoyment that's beyond your wildest dreams. It's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. That's the hardest thing I've ever done. With the menopause thing and the hysterectomy, that's just a wave that you have to ride because it's something that's your body's generating. That's, that's something you have to respond to. With the binge drinking, it was something that I had to actively choose and then recognize what that 40 years worth of drinking was, and deal with all the stuff that came up. It's like raw dog in it. Angela sent me something about it. I like my suffering raw. Yeah, but actually, and this is what Kath says when she talks about a lot, at some point the suffering ceases. If you are willing to do the work on the suffering, so that could be therapy or more what I'm doing right now because I'm on a budget is I'm doing it myself. I'm coaching myself. I'm getting coached by other people. I'm seeking solutions that are very budget friendly, which is another absolute delight. Is like it's it's just I can feel that there's the potential for something wonderful to happen and something just a kind of a set point that's more close to normal is going to emerge for me. And I've just decided that after this, I'm going to go out and get myself ice cream and I'm going to re-listen to Matthew. It's over 2 hours long, the conversation is. I'm not going to edit it because I want it all to be out there. The only thing I might do is chop it in half. But you know what? Why are we doing that? Why am I doing? Okay, so it could be a part one and a part two. It could be part one and part two. But also you, the listener, has control of the pause button. Ta-da! So, but it is nice to have it chopped up, isn't it? So maybe I'll chop it in half. Anyway, I'm going to go and get myself some ice cream. They've got a new flavor, cherry bomb or something like that, cherry bonbon or something like that. I'm going to go and try the new flavor of ice cream at the ice cream shop in Zushi. And this is all part of the daily dialogue with death. And so to sum up, listen to Matthew's podcast that's going to come out on the 17th of September. It's long, it's detailed, it's brilliant. I asked him at the end what he said. I really loved that. And I said to him, out of interest, what did you love about it? Because you get great feedback about what's working in your interviewing, right? And he said, I loved that you asked me about coming to Japan for the first time. And I loved that you asked me about my background and how I found my way here, because I just love Japan. And it's such a joy to recall that time of my life. And I'd set it up and I said this to him at the beginning. It's like, it's very easy. I want to talk about your background. I want to talk about prior to 8 years ago as well, because it's very easy to see somebody who has cancer, and especially somebody whose kind of whole life is focused on that now with the MPO, Make Cancer History, and with his own treatments and so on going on, and with his daily dialogue with death. And it's very easy to just see you as a cancer and that's it. But you're a whole person with a whole life. And he described it like the first 36 years of his life have been like condensed into a really small space of time. And it's like the last 8 years have been his life. It was the same when I interviewed Tiffany Rossdale. It's like we could have talked about her trans experience the whole time, but actually, for me, she's a whole person, and that's part of her life experience. I want to know about her as well. So yeah, and it's the same with all my guests. It's like I want to hear about them. I want to hear about their lives. I want to hear about all of it. Every person, I just want to hear about all of their lives, not just the thing that they're kind of known for, that they identify as. It's the same for me. Like I identify very strongly with menstruation and menopause at the moment, sobriety. I have to keep identifying like that to remind myself that I need to keep reminding myself to look after all these little people who are living inside me, the ADHD teenager, the sober toddler, the wombless baby, all these things, and the adult who's trying to look after all of those, plus themselves, plus their own spirit, you know, and be in a marriage and not be living with their aging parents, etc., 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 etc. There's just so many things that are going on, and it's important to keep looking after all the parts of oneself, I think. So again, I've just gone off on a little trip there, and I'm glad because I can say this again. I haven't been able to say this for a little while, but I like myself, and I'm just a human being in a human experience, and I behave terribly sometimes, and I'm a pain in the ass sometimes. And I have ADHD, so I say things that some people wouldn't say out loud. And I'm not neurotypical, so I don't always know the rules. Uh, and I've tried so hard over the years, but it always slips. I don't know the rules of the neurotypical people. And I hope if any neurotypical people have got this far that you were able to follow and that you can pick something out. We're pretty straightforward as neuro divergent people. And I hope that you can just feel a little bit of our magic as you listen as well. And if you suspect that you too are neurodivergent, that you can find some of that magic in yourself. Or if you're neurotypical and you have neurodivergent people around you, that you can see the magic in them as well. Because remember that every single day we're in a daily dialogue with death. And some people don't recover from big crashes, and some people do. And if there's just the tiniest little piece that can help anybody who's going through a really hard time to find their way back to find their way into something um, with some consistent new normal for them through listening to my wild dialogues, I would be so happy. I'm not attached to that. This is mostly for me to ask you to go and listen to Matthew's podcast. It's terrific. And to the back stories of mine, you may learn a few things. And to find the channels where you just love to work, and to be mindful and supportive of the women in your life who are of a certain age, and to find those good men. No, good men. Oh, you know, who just live with such abject fullness and throw themselves into their things with such reverence and respect. Um, yeah. So let me have a look at my notes. I think I've hit everything I wanted to. Yep. Hope to see you at the clothes swap. Hope to see you in the grief circle. Hope to see you on the September 19th workshop. Grief and the stupid things that people say. That's 2,000 yen, 1,500 for my lifetime members. So cheap, so affordable, such good information. Um, Coaching, get in touch. I've got 20 years of experience, 10 years just coaching. My mind works in such a way that, and I've been through so much that not only do I have what I've learned, the academic rigor, the coaching smarts, neurodivergence, and somebody who's been in the neurotypical world for many, many years masking, so I know better than anybody what that means. Doesn't mean that I'm good at it. It does mean that I know it. I love coaching people. I just love it. And I will be making offers in my birthday week. Watch out for that. Come join me. And I'm even thinking about setting up another sacred circle mastermind as well. Because there's a level of work that I want to do with certain kinds of women. Yeah, there's a certain power that it needs to happen outside, not adjacent to, well, maybe adjacent to, but outside the norm. It doesn't mean that you don't have a corporate job, but you know how to communicate in this other place. Yeah. Woo! I don't even know if you can hear that laughter. Sometimes the Zoom cuts out those noises, but yeah, it's an exciting time, right? I need to go, and I need to not look at Facebook because it might annoy me. I need to not look at Instagram because it might annoy me. Um, and I need to go and get myself some ice cream and listen to Matthew's 2-hour podcast so I can decide whether I'm chopping it in half or whether I'm letting you, my gorgeous listeners, decide for yourselves. Let's see what happens. Okay, my darlings, I love live and everybody has stuff. Okay. And I want to hear them and tell them. And don't forget, you're in a daily dialogue with death. And the closer you get to that, oh, I don't know, just be generous. Be generous. Bye.